Hello, hello, hello. Oh my goodness gracious. Give me a second. Ah. Hello, hello, hello. Greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of greed across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the study. And I just realized I left my mic on the entire time. Oh, dear goodness gracious. Oh my goodness. Well, such things happen. Such things happen, my dear scholars. Oh dear. Oh, that's one for the books, I suppose. Oh, well, I hope all you marvelous scholars out there are doing a little less mistakes as I am. Hello there, Private Maverick. Welcome. Oh, congratulations on getting first. Is this your first time getting first, Private Maverick? I think it might be. I don't remember. Well, but congratulations. Oh my goodness gracious. If you're wondering why I'm coughing so much, I decided I was a little peckish before the stream, so I ate some chips. And of course, one of them gets lodged in my throat. Mm, mm. Private Maverick, probably. Usually someone else winds up getting it before I do. Well, you got it tonight. And what did he win, Horace? Why, that's a fantastic prize. Did you hear that, Private Maverick? Oh my goodness, I wish I was as lucky as you are. Oh, oh my goodness gracious. Oh, but yes, it's good to have you all here, my dear scholars, wherever you are. Private Maverick, absolutely nothing. Oh, you definitely got something. Didn't you hear Horace say it? It's spectacular. It's amazing. My goodness gracious. I couldn't think of anything better. Oh, it's so wonderful. I could faint. Oh. Private Maverick, I don't understand the words coming out of his mouth, though. Wait, you don't? Wait a second. Wait a moment. All this time, have all of you not been hearing what Horace has been saying? Have I been the only one who has actually understood anything Horace says? I'm shocked. Oh my goodness, I feel so embarrassed. Oh my goodness gracious. Private Maverick took you that long to notice that. Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, I should probably tell you what your prize is, um, Private Maverick. Your prize is and even more than that. Wasn't that amazing, Private Maverick? I mean, think about it. All that just for getting first. Oh, it's so amazing that I couldn't even repeat myself. You okay there, Private Maverick? You don't look too happy. Ah, look, I'll repeat myself again. I'll tell you what it is one more time, alright? So, the prize for getting first in the study is. It's spectacular, isn't it? It's just absolutely amazing. It leaves me speechless every time. Oh, where was I? Oh, yes, yes, yes. I digress. So, anyway, my dear scholars, tonight we are continuing our reading of Doctor Syn. So, last time, my dear scholars, where were we anyway? Oh, yes, last time, our theories were confirmed. Romney Marsh is indeed the headquarters for a gang of smugglers. Mr. Mipps is one of the members, as is apparently was one of the teachers. The teacher's Rash, that was his name. Rash, I forget his name. Oh! Hello there, Jury Jelly. Thank you for the resubscribe. Jury Jelly, you digress. Okay, Taz. I don't know whether to take that as a insult or not. I'll take it as a compliment. Where was I? Oh yes, we were describing last week's reading. So anyway, they have discovered that there are smugglers on Romney Marsh. Mr. Mipps is one of the members. The school teacher Rash, who was the killer of the doctor, of the neighborhood, not Doctor Syn, but the other doctor, um, is responsible. Was a member, but he was turned out. And now we don't know who the leader of the band is, though. But Mr. Mipps has offered the chance and job to young Jerry Jerk. Again, that really is his name. Even though Jerry Jerk is someone who is completely unreliable. But yes, where was I? Oh, yes, 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 yes. But yes, and in, I'm trying to think. Horace, help me here. Horace, please help me. Okay, okay. But as we left, the sea captain has visited Mr. Mip's shop, and for some reason, the book has sidelined itself into talk about funerary practices. Last time, it was a very odd story about Chinese funerals. Really weird. Supposedly very funny. I don't know. Kind of off-putting, actually. And then now we will have another story, apparently. I think at this point Thorndike just realized he needed to put something in to keep the momentum going in the story, so he put these little sidelines in to keep interest for the readers. Anyway, shall we continue our reading of Doctor Syn and find out what continues to happen on Romney Marsh? Ooh. Oh, man, this thing. I'm just having an odd day today. I will take your silence as a yes. So then, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage of your liking, dim the lights if you wish, and let us continue our reading of Doctor Syn by Russell Thorndike. You know, I'll say this before I start. The version I'm reading markets itself as the restored editions. I am wondering, because in the introduction that I have of this edition, it mentions that many editions cut out bits and pieces and remove bits and edit things. And I am wondering if perhaps these two chapters were removed from other editions because they do seem kind of superfluous. Oh, trying to clear my throat. So this is another long one, so my dear scholars, I'm not going to read it in Mip's voice because it would be very hard on my voice to read it as Mr. Mips. This entire 5 or 6 or how many pages they are. So we'll be reading them in my own voice, my dear scholars, if that is plainly alright with you. Thank you. Chapter 26, The Tower of Silence. And again, before I read it also, this was written back in 1913 or something like that. So it has a lot of outdated views. Views that I don't share. So please take all this with a grain of salt. Thank you. The Parsees, or Gurliers, as they is called sometimes, is the queerest mild-looking fish as you can watch to see. For fire-worshipping savages, they are in most respectable, polite, and Christian in their behavior. That was at the time, I believe that was a mistaken belief about them. Yeah. Most of the men is very fat indeed, and they wear japanned hats on their heads made in the shape of a cloven hoof, what gives them a very rum look. You know, again, this is all, yeah. They lives very decent with their wives, only being allowed by their religion to have one at a time, which to my way of thinking is more than enough too. But if the wife don't bear no child for 9 years, the husband can marry another, which in my opinion would be a silly thing to do. Okay. But I ain't a giving you a lecture on these folks. I wants just to give you an idea of the way they buries their dead, or rather the way they don't bury 'em. For you see, they altogether dispense with whattumps. Whattumps? What is a whattumps? Hmm. They has birds instead. Can you imagine the horrible feeling of waking up out of a trance and seeing yourself divided up among 1,000 birds, all a flying off with bits of ya in different directions? That's the sort of thing them Parsees has to put up with in the undertaking line. Okay, yeah, this is. I don't know if this is accurate or not. I'll tell you the story of an old man what I seed knocked over in a Bombay street one day by a runaway horse, nearly killed. I was close by when the accident happened. I happened to notice the old gent crossing the road just before it did happen. He had a very beautiful young girl a walking with him, and she seemed very particular struck all of a sudden with me, for she turned round and tipped me the wink in as modest a way as she could possibly manage. Mind you, I don't blame the girl, because I always did seem to attract the admiration of the females, probably because they never attracted me. They show the contrariness of fate, don't it? Well, her old father turned round and saw his daughter smiling at me, and that was just why he didn't get out of the way of the runaway horse. Feeling as how I was partially to blame in the matter, though in all innocence, of course, I offered to help to carry the old gent to his house. Two other coves come along to help too, but I could see that the young girl took no notice of them, though she thanked them very prettily, 'cause all the way her attention was divided between weeping over her poor old father, what was so badly hurt, and smiling at me. Very odd. He's a going to die, plain enough, says one of the coves what was helping. You're a cheerful sort of fellow, ain't you? Says I in his lingo. But who might you be that knows such a lot? Tain't me, answered the cove, but the bird knows. And now strike me dead, Captain, if I didn't see a great black beastly vulture a following up the street. I don't know why that image makes me laugh. He went on in the most indecent way of flapping round us, then flying on ahead and sitting on a housetop to wait till we come up. When we reached the old gent's house, that horrible creature with its disgusting long red neck, like a sort of snake, sat on the balcony opposite the sick room lattice, and nobody could budge him. Now that is very rude, to call a vulture ugly. Certainly they might not be the most attractive of birds, but still, let us be kind to our feathery friends, please. Where am I? I proposed shooting the damn thing there and then with my pistol, but the old gent wouldn't hear of it. I'm a dying, he said. That's plain enough, and well that there bird knows it. He'll be off to the Tower of Silence to warn his fellows of my coming. Then the birds will devour my body and will lift me high above the earth. Well, although he put it very poetical, I couldn't help thinking how very nasty it all was. But it was just as he said, for I used to call in every day and inquire after him, and so it happened that I was there when he passed away. Now, the moment he had passed away, that weird bird gave a sort of cry, and if ever I heard a death cry, it was the cry of that there vulture. Immediately, another bird of the same kind came flying along and perched itself alongside. The first bird evidently told his chum that the old un was dead, 'cause away flew the second bird, after having a good look through the lattice. Away he flew to the Tower of Silence, what stood on a hill outside the city. The first bird he stopped there till the bearers came for the body, which was the same day, 'cause the undertake's very prompt in the east on account of the heat. Makes sense. Also, if you could tell, this entire chapter is written in dialect, so it I know it does sound a little odd coming from me reading it this way. I am trying not to strain my voice on this entire long chapter, so. He was to be buried in the evening, or rather eaten, and I never shall forget those humpty-backed birds looking so ugly on the walls of the great round open tower. About 20 of them was perched on the branch of a gray old blasted tree, what looked over the outer wall of the tower, and their friends, there was about 400 of 'em perched along the wall, sort of squashed up, you understand, to give them room. Now, as a rule, you aren't supposed to look at the body being eaten. They lay it inside the tower on a grating, and as soon as the bearers has clanged the iron door behind 'em, them birds drop down like a lot of dead weights and fight for the choice bits. In the space of an hour, they pick the dead unclean, and the bones fall into a lime pit, so that there's nothing left. You. Now, of course, I was very anxious to see the whole performance. Why? Why would you want to see that? And one of the bearers thought he could manage it for me. I paid him a goodly sum, and he got hold of a ladder. And when all the mourners had gone home, we both climbed up and looked over the wall. I never have seen such a sight. Them birds was having a regular rough and tumble, but they didn't make no noise over it, 'cause their mouths were too full, you see. Again, ew. Now I hadn't suspected nothing, but presently the bear who sat with me on the top of the wall says, "Our religion doesn't allow us to look at this sight." "Well, we are a looking it, ain't we?" says I in the lingo, "and it's very interesting, I considers." "No one shall see this and live," says he. "Oh," says I, "really now, and what's to prevent me from living?" "This," says he, and he whips out a knife and aims a blow at me. I dodged as best I could, knocking over an old vulture on the wall that couldn't move, as he had eaten so much of my old friend, the gent down below. But the knife did graze me in the arm for all that. See, here's the scar still. And the sexton rolled up his sleeve and showed a livid mark upon his dirty tattooed arm. That put my monkey up, I tells you. But I didn't want to lose my temper, for fear I might also lose my balance on the wall. So I just asked him what the devil he thought he was a-doing. "That man down there," says he, pointing with his knife down into the great hollow of the tower, "had a daughter." "I know her very well," says I, "and a fine upstanding young party she is too." "I love her," screamed the man, "and she loved me till her eyes fell on you, you dog, and now she won't marry me, but you shan't marry her, you scum." Scum? Really? I could think of a dozen better words than that. "I don't know that I'm particular desirous to," said I. "You insult her!" he screams in a most unreasonable rage, and he jumps up to his feet and rushes at me along the wall. So he insults her. So he insults him if he marries her, but if he doesn't marry her, he insults her. Got it. Mm. Well, I caught his ankle and twisted it. Over he falls on top of me, just missing me with the knife. But he missed more, for he missed his hold on the wall, and down he went crashing inside that tower, right on top of the vultures. They shambled away, frightened and screaming. I could see him writhing there below me, all smashed up but still alive, and suffering the tortures of the damned. He was trying to put an end to his misery by reaching out for the knife, which had lodged just within his reach upon the grating. But as soon as he touched it, it slipped through into the lime pit. Blackguard though he was, I didn't like to I didn't like think of his lingering there for hours waiting for them birds to finish him off when he got too weak to move. So I drew out my pistol, what I always carried, and put him out of his troubles with a good shot with what hit him full in the head. Oh, this really is gruesome. And that was the end of that. I had to get out of Bombay as quickly as I could in case of trouble, but I thinks that I attended a very weird and grisly funeral that day, don't you, Captain? And now I can go to the next voices. I think so too, said the captain, and filling their glasses once more, they pledged each other. The captain left the sexton to his hammering, and walked out over the marsh. He had taken good stock of that coffin shop while Mr. Mipps had been yarning, and he was putting two and two together, and the result was 4 black marks against the sexton. He knew him to be out of his own mouth an adventurer, and when it came to the push, an unscrupulous one. Also, he had confessed to having had dealings with buccaneers. The captain was quick enough to see that he must have been hand in glove with the ringleaders, possibly a ringleader himself. Then he had counted no less than 13 coffins, finished coffins with closed lids, in the shop, and he knew that there were only 2 bodies awaiting burial in the place: the doctor, Senachero Pepper, and the sailor killed at the vicarage. Therefore, what were the others for? That they were misfits was out of the question, for Mipps was too shrewd a man to make 11 misfits. Besides, he would have broken them up for fresh material. No, those 11 coffins were destined for other things beside corpses. And the 4th black mark against the sexton was his hypocrisy, and the ready wit that did it. If any man was interested, and deeply interested in the great smuggling scheme of Romney Marsh, he felt that Mipps was the man, the tool of another's brain, another mightier than he. The squire, probably. Doctor Syn, possibly, though he had yet to bring the test to bear upon that enigmatical vicar. I can't pronounce words for some reason. But although as yet Doctor Syn was beyond their grasp, Sexton Mipps was within it. He was sure of his guilt, and knowing all he did of the man's character, he fell to wondering how it had been possible for him to fall under his spell. For apart from Doctor Syn, he would rather have had Mipps for his friend than the rest of the village put together. That odd little man had a rare way of making you like him, for over all his astute cunning hung an impenetrable something that was nearly, if not altogether, lovable. But the hunter goes to no pains to rehearse the beauty of an animal he is stalking. The captain puzzled out his plans for cornering not only Mipps, but every Ronin on the marsh. And if the squire and Doctor Syn were in the bag, well, so much the better for the bag. So in a way that chapter was important, but I still say it wasn't that important, and it was a little odd that they included it. It felt very much like filler, my dear scholars. Oh, jeez. Trying to adjust myself. It felt like it was just put in there to lengthen the story a little bit, and to add a little bit of, adventurous color. Like I said, a lot of these viewpoints are really antiquated. And, yeah. I don't agree with them at all. What's the next one? Oh. Alright, we'll continue. Usually for the cough. Chapter 27. The Devil's Tiring House. If the village was abed by 10 o'clock, the coffin shop was very much alive by half an hour after midnight. Jerk, according to his instructions, found himself tapping upon the back window at that very hour, and immediately was hauled into the house by Mr. Mipps himself. The sexton wore a voluptuous riding cloak, heavily tippeted, and a black mask hid the upper part of his face. But Jerk could see by a glance in the fine, sharp jaws that Mipps had laid aside his oiliness of manner, his sarcastic wit, and cringing self-compliancy, and was allowing the real man that was in him to shine forth for once in a way. Jerk saw the iron qualities in the sexton that had struck the spark upon the flinty bosom of Mrs. Waggetts, for as Mipps walked about among his men from room to room, and in and out of the coffin shop, which was heavily shuttered, there was a mastery in his air. And the company that Jerk found himself among, well, if he had suddenly found himself in the green room of Drury Lane Theatre, in the midst of the great play actors, he could not have been more surprised. For there collected all together were the jack-o'-lanterns, the marsh witches, and the demon riders, all preparing themselves as for a county fair. Grisly old men, fishermen, and laborers, as the case might be, were arranging themselves in torn rags of women's garments, and with a few deft touches of Mip's hand, lo, the fishermen and laborers were no more, and marsh witches took their place. Similarly were the big fellows, hulking great men of Kent, metamorphized into demons, enormous demons, upon whose faces Mipps stuck heavy mustachios and hairy eyebrows of a most terrible aspect. The grizzled ones likewise used horsehair and lawn streamers from their conical hats, so that their appearance as witch folk should be the more pronounced. Excuse me. There were also 3 little boys and 2 little girls dressed as jack-o'-lanterns. They were much younger than Jerk, but their rig-outs filled him with envy. That's interesting. They're essentially Scooby-Dooing this entire plan, dressing up as fearsome creatures to drive away folks from seeing their operations. That's interesting. Gentlemen! Gentlemen! Said Mipps. I almost did the captain there, leading Jerry into this motley throng of eccentrics. The new recruit, a young man what has the eye of an eagle and the nerves of a steel blade. Those who quarrels with this young gentle come off worse, for if I'm not mistook, but them what be his friends can bank on his good faith, for he's as staunch as a dog. Get your brandy flasks out, my devils, and let's drink to our new recruit. Jerry Jerk, his name is. But according to custom, we drop all mention of private names in this business. So up with your glasses whilst I rechristen him. We has power, we has. We has devils among us of very great power, for we has lawyers and farmers and squires and parsons what be in league with us. But the greatest enemy we has is not the revenue swabs, nor the admiralty uniforms, nor the bloody redcoats, nor the Prince Regent, God bless him for a vagabond and a rip. No, I think you knows who we fears more than all that ruck. Jack Ketch! Jack Ketch! Whispered the horrible creature. Why, right you are, for Jack Ketch it be, retorted the sexton. And here's a man what's going sooner or later to be a Jack Ketch. He's got all the gifts of the hangman, he has. Just that jolly way with him, he has. And so you'll all be delighted to hear how he's joined us. For what Jack Ketch as our friend will cheat the black cap on the gallows. Gentlemen, Jack Ketch. Therefore they all drank to Jerk with much spirit, and Jerk, having been presented with a flask, pledged them in return, and was introduced to all severely by the sexton. This is Beelzebub, knocked over a good round dozen revenue swabs in your time, ain't you, Beelzebub? And this is Belch, the demon, the finest rider we ever had in our demon horse. And here's Satan, and this be Cat's Eye, the weirdest old witch you ever met with in a storybook. And so on. until such a vast collection of weird names had been rammed into Dirk's brains that he felt quite overpowered. However, when his own particular uniform was produced for him to don, his interests were requickened, and before Mips had half finished attiring him in the strange rags, Dirk would have gone bail that it wasn't himself he saw in the old cracked mirror. "I know, Jack Ketch," said Mips. "You only have to follow me into the coffin shop to get your allowance of devil's pomade. Then I thinks you'll feel real pleased with yourself." Into the weird coffin shop accordingly Jerry followed the sexton, and there was that black cauldron that he remembered so well. Now he would discover its use. Mips stirred the contents, and with a great brush began daubing Jerry's face. The curious smell made the youngster close his eyes, and he felt the brush pass over them. "Now," said the sexton, "I blows out the candles, and you shall see." Jerry opened his eyes as the sexton blew out the lights. "Bring out the mirror," called the sexton. And then in the coffin shop came the other members of the company, and the mystery of the demon riders was explained. For in the dark room, each diabolical face glistened like the moon, and when the cracked mirror had been held up before him, he saw that he in his turn burned with the same hellfire. "It's time, Satan, to get the scarecrow in. And you, Beelzebub, go and paint the horses with what's left in the cauldron." Beelzebub obeyed the sexton promptly, and picking up the cauldron went to the back of the house. Satan accompanied him on his different errand, namely, that of bringing in the scarecrow, a thing that puzzled Jerry exceedingly. Mips seemed to read his thoughts, for he approached and whispered, "Jack Ketch, you're wondering about the scarecrow now, ain't you? Well, you've noticed him, I dare say. All dressed in black at the bottom of my turnip field, ain't you?" "Yes," replied the new christened Jack Ketch. "I've noticed him as long as I can remember, and a very lifelike scarecrow I consider him to be." "You're right," replied the sexton. "It's the best scarecrow I ever seed, for it's lifelike, and no mistake. And if you keep your eyes open, you'll see him a bit more lifelike tonight. You wait." Satan soon reappeared, bearing on his shoulder the dead lump of the scarecrow. Mips indicated an old coffin that lay on the floor behind the counter of the shop, and Satan at once pushed the scarecrow into it and covered him with a lid. "He'll be there until the work's done," said Mips, "for you see the great man himself rides out at night as the scarecrow, and if you keep your eyes open, you'll spot him. Now, Beelzebub," as that terror reappeared, "I take it that them horses is all ready. So bear in mind that my friend Jack Ketch is new to the game, and stick by him. Good luck to you, devils, and may the mists guard the legion from all damned swabs." And so the company filed out of the devil's tiring house. Ain't you coming along, Hellspite?" said one of the ghastly crew to the sexton. "No, Pontius Pilate, I ain't," replied Mips, "for me and Blunderbuss is a-going to watch that damn meddlesome captain." And so they left him there, Blunderbuss leading Jerry by the hand out of the back door of Old Tree Cottage. Ooh. Things are getting right spooky. I should have waited to read this probably on Halloween, shouldn't I? My goodness, what has Jerry gotten himself into? Now, it is interesting to note that in some of the adaptations, at least one of them, I just realized I have my mic off. I don't know why. Did everyone hear my story? Was my mic on when I was reading? Dear scholars. Oh my goodness. Did I read that entire chapter with the mic off? Hello? Dear scholars. Oh no, did I can't tell. Oh my goodness gracious. I can't hold on, my dear scholars. Oh no. Oh no. I mean, I'll read it again if necessary. Um, if any of dear scholars, was my mic on? Hello? Or was it just off during that one little bit? Hold on. Oh, now I'm worried. I mean, again, I can reread the chapter. It's a short one. Oh, if I missed it, oh no. Oh dear. Oh, good, good. Thank you, Private Maverick. Thank you. Oh, I think I was worried. Um, I don't want it to reread chapters. But yeah, what I was saying was I was just saying that Jerry Jerk is not in most of the adaptations of this book, and I can see why. Because one, having a child protagonist act like this is probably pretty much a turnoff for a lot of people, and two, he really is not a likable character. He's not a character you can sympathize with. He's a bratty kid who's getting carried away into this world that he's probably not ready for. It is clever, though, again, the idea that the smugglers are essentially dressing up in costume to frighten away all witnesses. Because, I mean, who would dare try and approach back then anyone dressed like this? At least not armed. Excuse me. Anyway, I guess we'll continue since I wasn't muted. Chapter 28. This is a really weird stream tonight. Chapter 28. The Scarecrow's Legion. The company found their steeds in the turnip field at the back of the house, guarded so religiously during the daytime by the old scarecrow that now reposed in the coffin. Horses and ponies were decked out with weird trappings, and all tethered to a low fence that bordered one of the dikes. Jerry's horse, or rather the missing schoolmaster's horse, was brought to him by Beelzebub himself, whom Jerry very soon discovered to be a most entertaining and affable devil. It was fortunate indeed for Jerry that he was a good rider, and had a knowledge of the marsh, for the cavalcade immediately set out across the fields, breaking into a wild gallop, leaping dikes and sluices so madly that it was a marvel indeed to the boy that his old scrag bones could keep pace with them. Beelzebub rode at his side on a strong farm horse and kept urging him to a higher speed. It was nothing more nor less than a haphazard cross-country steeplechase, and the young venture was caught in the thrill of it. "Heels in hand, Jack Ketch, when I tell you, now!" And hard went the heels in, and neck to neck with the horses, straight at the broad dike. Yoink! And up they would go, crashing down again into the rush tops on the far side. Thus they traversed the marsh for 6 miles, till they reached the high road under Limpine Hill. There they drew rein at a spot where 3 roads met. At the bend of these roads, Jerry could see a man on a tall gray horse. "That's the Scarecrow," whispered Beelzebub. "That's the great man hisself." One of the jack-o'-lanterns trotted off on his pony towards the figure, and Jerk saw him salute the Scarecrow, who handed him a paper. Saluting again, the youngster came back to Beelzebub, who took the paper from him and read it carefully by the light of the young Jack's lantern. For these boys carried lanterns fixed upon long poles, bearing them standard fashion as they rode. As he was reading, Beelzebub As he was reading, Beelzebub kept catching his breath excitedly, and he tucked the paper away in his belt. He muttered, "May the marsh be good to the Scarecrow tonight." Jerry instinctively looked down the road to where the Scarecrow had been standing, but horse and rider had disappeared. "Ah, Jack Ketch," said Beelzebub. "You are wondering what's of him, eh? You need an eye of quicksilver to keep sight of him. Here, there, and everywhere. And all at once he is, and astride the finest horse on Romney Marsh. A horse, what und makes the Prince Regent's mouth water. A horse more valuable to the Scarecrow than the Bank of England." But where's he gone to?" asked Jerry. "About his business and thine, Jack Ketch," answered the devil. "I wish I'd see him go," returned Jerry, "for I likes to see a good horse on the move. He went very silent, didn't he?" "You'll never hear the noise of the Scarecrow's horse a-trotting, Jack Ketch, 'cause he got pads on his hoofs. Ah, he's up to some tricks, is the Scarecrow, and by hell, he'll need 'em tonight."
"Why?"
asked Jerk. "Because he's had word passed from Hellspite that the King's men are out, and Scarecrow thinks as how we may have to fight 'em."
"And don't you want to do that?"
"Why, you see, it 'ud be awkward if any of us got wounded, and wounded men ain't easy things to hide in a village, is they? And it 'ud be a difficult business to explain. Now, come to that, Scarecrow ain't never put out for an explanation or nothing." As he was speaking, Beelzebub took Jerry's rein and started off again at the head of the cavalcade. Their way was now along the road the Scarecrow had appeared, and when they had ridden for about half a mile, they again sighted him, seeing his horse stock still in the middle of the way. But this time he was not alone, for there were some half-dozen men leading pack ponies from the road into a large field. Towards this field Beelzebub led his cavalcade, and consequently they had to pass the grim figure called the Scarecrow. Jerry, you may be sure, was ambitious to get a near view of this strange personage, for he wanted, if possible, to pierce his disguise and see if he could recognize the features. But the nearer he got, the stranger became the strange figure. The stranger became the strange figure. That is an odd sentence. If it was anyone that he knew, then it was only the Scarecrow in Mip's Turnfield, for he was as like as two peas are like to each other. And the voice was not like any voice he could put an owner to, although there was something familiar in it. It was a hard, metallic voice, the voice of a commander. Give me 1 second, I have to figure out this voice. "The King's men are watching the Millhouse farm. So, Beelzebub, you will circle the pack ponies as usual till we get half a mile from the house. Then you will cut off and decoy them from the rear. If your attack is sudden and fierce, they will have all they can do to defend themselves, and that will give the Millhouse farm men time to get their pack ponies in with the others. I will see that they get them away safely. And when you have shaken off the King's men, pick us up again on the Romney Road opposite Littlestone Beach. Understood?" "Understood, Scarecrow, understood," replied Beelzebub promptly. "And," went on the strange man, "you will stick by Jack Ketch as far as possible, and don't let him get into any needless danger. I want him to see all the fun that is possible, but I don't want any hurt to come to him. If I alter the plans, I'll pass the word. Understood? Understood, Scarecrow. Understood, repeated Beelzebub. Then off you go! And off they did go, the pack ponies trotting under their heavy loads of wood, yeah, heavy loads of wool, keeping along the edges of the field. This was done with a very good purpose, for where the dikes run zigzag over Romney Marsh, a thick mist arises some 8 feet high, and even upon nights of full moon these mists yet hang about like heavy rolls of spider's web, contrasting strangely with the rest of the country, which is all bright and clear. Jerk had to ride even faster than before, for the pack ponies, entirely hidden by the mist curtains, were circled and circled all the way by the galloping demons and jack-o'-lanterns, these last swinging their pole lights round their heads and uttering strange cries like those of the marsh fowl. This accounted then for all the ghostly tales he had heard. Belated travelers crossing the marsh, or villagers who were not in the secret, had seen and heard these ghostly things upon the marsh. A very clever scheme, Jerk thought it was, and a very good way of clearing the ground of the curious. So on they rode in wild circles round and round the pack ponies. Beelzebub was the actual leader. He it was who gave the orders. But the mysterious Scarecrow would dash out of the mist every now and again, just to see that all was well with the Legion, and then as quickly would he disappear, borne away like a ghost upon that spectral grey thoroughbred. On they dashed, stopping at numerous farms on the way, where they always found more pack ponies waiting to join the cavalcade. And then this Scarecrow was always somewhere. As soon as any little hitch occurred, as one frequently did when the men placed a temporary bridge over the dikes for the transit of the pack ponies, the Scarecrow would suddenly appear in their midst, giving sharp orders, whose prompt obedience meant an instant end to the difficulty, whatever it chanced to be. It was the laying of this same temporary bridge that caused most of the delays, for it was a cumbersome thing to move about, and it had to be built strong enough to support the weight of the pack ponies. These ponies, too, caused at some periods of the march a considerable bother, for their packs of wool would sometimes shake loose from the harness, and the cavalcade would be fain to stop while this was remended. Remedied. Why did I say remended? Remedied. But, although the pack ponies stopped often, the demon riders were never allowed that luxury. Beelzebub entirely flagged the horse round and round, now in large circuits, now in small circles, always reeling in the pack ponies from any prying eyes. It would have meant death to anyone who got a view within that sweeping scythe of cavalry. And as murderers on the marsh were all put down to the marsh devils, and because of the dreaded superstition that had grown in the mind of Kentish folk, the smugglers were utterly calloused as to what crimes they perpetrated. They were as safe from the law as the most law-abiding citizen, for those who didn't credit the existence of murdering hobgoblins at least possessed sufficient fear of the smugglers themselves, and left them religiously alone. After all, it was not business for anyone's but the revenue men, and so the revenue men were they left, and in nearly every record it may be seen that the revenue men got the worst of it. Oh dear. That is interesting that the Scarecrow has shown up. I wonder who it might be. The leader of the smugglers and the genius behind it all. Yeah. I mean, can you guess who it might be? I have a good guess, which I'm not going to share. But yes, things are getting really spooky, my dear scholars. It seems like we're going to get into a fair bit of action here. It's a long chapter. And we are going to be getting more closer to the end, I think. Yeah. All right. Well, my dear scholars. Actually, let me grab another bottle of water. because mine is almost out. So we can continue this so I can stay hydrated. It is very difficult to read this and with all these voices and not stay hydrated. Excuse me. All right. Chapter 29. The Fight at Millhouse Farm. Millhouse Farm was the last on Beelzebub's list, and in the dike facing the house, but on the other side of the high road, crouched the king's men, commanded by the boatswain. They were as still as mice, for the captain had given strict orders on that score, but they need not have put themselves to such pains, for owing to the extreme vigilance of Sexton Mipps, the smugglers knew exactly where they were and what they were going to do. Now, it is depressing to the most seasoned fighters to have to crouch for hours in a muddy dike, waiting for an outnumbering enemy, for it was common knowledge that if smuggling was carried on upon the marsh, it was well organized, and relied for its secrecy upon the strength and number of its assistants. So the boatswain had no easy task in keeping his men from grumbling. For whatever Captain Collier's opinions may have been with regard to maintaining the law and his duty, it was pretty evident that his men had no great relish for the task. The boatswain hardly wished that the captain had not left him responsible, for his absence was having a bad effect upon the men. It is one thing to fight an enemy, but quite another to shoot down your own countrymen, and although every man jack of them was itching for the French war, they felt no enthusiasm for this smuggling business. The whole of the countryside was with the lawbreakers, and who knows how many of these same king's men had not themselves done a profitable trade with illegal cargoes from France. Such was the feelings of the king's men as they lay in the dike opposite Millhouse Farm, listening to the noise of ponies' hooves in the yard, and waiting to fire upon anyone who presented himself. But the order not to kill but to fire low also damped their spirits. For what chance would they have against fellows desperate to keep their necks out of the rope, who would most certainly aim to kill? The boatswain had great difficulty in preventing one old sea-dog who lay next to him in the ditch from voicing his opinion of the proceedings in a loud bass voice. But what he did say he, after all, had the good grace to whisper, though none too softly.
What's the hell's the sense, Mr. Boatswain, of sending a good seaman like we be to die like dogs in this blame ditch? Ain't England got no use for seamen nowadays? 'Tain't the members of Parliament what'll serve her when it comes to fighting, though they does talk so very pleasant.
They don't talk as much as you do, was the hushed retort of the boatswain.
Look here, Joe Mallet, went on the other, you've been shipmate of mine for longer than I well remember, and you be in command here. Well, I ain't a kicking against your authority, mind you, but I'm older than you be, and I want to give my views to you, which is also the views of every mother's son in this damned ditch. Why don't we clear out of this and be done with the folly? We looks to you, Joe Mallet. I say we looks to you as our boatswain, and a very good boatswain you be. We looks to you to save us being made fools of. We wants to fight the Frenchies, and not our own fellows. The Parliament's a making a great mistake putting down the smugglers. If they only talk nice to them, they'd find a regiment or two of smugglers very handy to fight them ugly furriers. I don't know what furriers is. For my own part, I don't see why the Parliament don't put down other professions for a bit and leave the smugglers alone. Why not give lawyers a turn, eh? They could do with a bit of exposing. Dirty swabs. Note that the study has no, does not condone the written hatred of lawyers in this book. and so could the doctors would sell colored water for doses.
The study does not condone the insults towards doctors either.
But, oh no, it's always the poor smugglers who be hard-working fellows. Very good fighters, too, as we'll soon be called upon to see.
All this time, Joe Mallet tried to silence him, but threats, persuasions, and arguments were useless.
Old Collie Wobbles thinks the same as what we does.
I'll have you remember, whispered the boatswain stiffly, that I be in command in this 'ere ditch. Don't know as to who you be alluding to when you say Collie Wobbles. I don't know no one of that name.
Oh, ain't you a stickler for duty?
Chuckled the sea dog.
Still I respect ye for it, though perhaps you'll permit me to say as how it was you in the fo'c'sle of the Resistance as gave the respectable Captain Howard Collier the pleasant pet name of Collywobbles. Perhaps that's slipped your memory for the moment.
It has, answered the boatswain.
Very well then. But you can take it from me as to how it was, and a very clever name it be too. But there, you always was one of the clever ones, Joe Mallet.
I wish I was clever enough to make you shut your fat mouth, muttered the boatswain.
Now then, Joe Mallet, don't you begin getting to personalities. But there now, I don't want to quarrel with you. You've always had my greatest respect, and as we'll probably be stiff uns in a few minutes, we won't quarrel, old pal. But I give you my word that I don't like being shot down like a rabbit, and I'm sorry as to how it's you as is in command. 'Cause if it was anyone else, I declares I'd get up now and walk home to bed. If Captain Collier was here, you know you'd do nothing of the sort. Why ain't he here? That's what I wants to know. Starve me dead. It's easy enough to send off poor old sea dogs to be shot like bunny rabbits. I could do that. There ain't no pluck in that, as far as I can see.
Oh, this is a long one. Excuse me.
You ain't a settling very good example to the younger men, I'm thinking, said Joe Mallet. You, the oldest seaman here, and a grumbling and a gossiping like an apple wife. You ought to think shame on yourself, old man. Oh, well, growled the sea dog, I won't utter another blasted word, I won't. But if you does want to know my opinion on these here proceedings, it's hell. I don't say as how I don't agree with you, returned Job Mallet, but there it is, and we've got to make the best of it. It won't do no good a grumbling. We'll make the best of a bad job, and I hopes as I, for one, will be able to do my duty, 'cause I don't relish it no more than you do. Oh, hello there, Yoy. Welcome.
Oh, and you want a radio voice. All right. Oh, my goodness. I need to get plenty of water in here. Okay. Greetings and salutations here at Radio Matsu, where we read to you all night long. Tonight we are reading the spectacular smuggler tale of Doctor Syn, just for you. And let's go a wonderful shout out to the one and only Yoy, who chose to have this radio voice called in. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Radio Matsu for your entertainment. Also, welcome, Yoy. We are reading Doctor Syn. Oh, my goodness gracious. Where am I?
Well, strike me blind, dumb, and deaf.
thundered the seaman in a voice of emotion as he clapped Joe Mallet on the back. "If I'd been a snivelling powder monkey, I ought to be downright ashamed of myself. And seeing as how I be the oldest seaman here instead, well, I'm more than downright ashamed, Joe Mallet, I thanks you. You set a good example to us all, Mr. Boatswain, and I'll stand by you for one. Damn the smugglers, and wait till I get at 'em, that's all." "Thank ye," said the boatswain, "but you'll greatly oblige me by keeping quiet, 'cause here they be, if I ain't mistook." Indeed, at that instant along the road came the sound of sharp, quick steps of the pack ponies. At present they were hidden in the mist, which floated thickly about that part of the marsh, but they could be heard, and not only the ponies, but a voice seen as well. This voice was raised in a wailing monotone, and the words were repeated over and over again. They were intended for the ears of the wretched sailors who were waiting in the ditch for the attack. "Listen, you good king's men, who are waiting to shoot us from the damp ditch. We have got your kind captain here. A blunderbuss is looking at the back of his head. If you fire on us, good king's men, then the blunderbuss will fire at the good captain. And then all the king's horses and all the king's men could not put captain together again." Even if the words were not sufficient to explain the situation to the sailors, the first figures of the cavalcade were sufficient. A donkey led by two jack-o'-lanterns on foot jolted out of the fog. Upon its back was a man bound and gagged, supported on either side by two devil-men. That the gagged wretch was the captain it needed no words to tell, for his uniform showed by the lantern's light, and there, right behind him, sure enough, was the blunderbuss in question, pointed by a snuffy little devil called by his colleagues Hellspite, who sat hunched up on a shoddy little pony. This little group halted at a convenient distance from the sailors in the ditch, and Hellspite again rehearsed his little speech, ending up with, "All the king's horses and all the king's men could not put captain together again." Now the poor boatswain in command had all his life grown so used to taking other people's orders that he didn't know what to do for the best. He liked the captain, and didn't want to see him killed, though he knew what he must be suffering in this ridiculous position. Yoy, they couldn't put my heart together again either. Aww, I'm sorry to hear that, Yoy. He knew that, had the captain but got the use of his speech, he would have shouted, "Fire and be damned to him!" But then the captain had not got the use of his speech. The Scarecrow and Hellspite knew enough of the man to see to that, and as they had no great desire to be fired at, they had seen that the gags were efficient. So it was, after all, small wonder that the old grumbling sea-dog next to him, who possessed a rollicking vein of humor, laughed until he rode back into the mud. The rest of the men were divided into two classes. Some, following the example of the boatswain, and being struck stiff with amazement and powerless wrath. Others joined the laughing tar in the muddy ditch and guffawing over the ridiculous situation of their captain, for he was not the build of man to sit an ass with any dignity. It was this sudden surprise that made the sailors unprepared for what followed. A large party of horses swept out of the mist behind them, and when they turned to see what fresh thing was amiss, there was a line of terrible cavalry pulling up on their haunches a few yards in their rear. Thus they were cut off on both sides. The devils with flaming faces, on horses of alarming proportions at their back, and in front their captain waiting for them to shoot,
to meet his own death by the little demon's blunderbuss. If you fire, good king's men, then the devil shall blast your captain. And you as well, you good king's men, shrieked and howled the demons at the back, who covered with pistol and blunderbuss every jack-tar in the ditch. Then another rider appeared on the scene. He was tall, thin, and of ungainly countenance, and he rode a light gray thoroughbred. He was the Scarecrow, and all the devils hailed him by that name as he appeared. Behind him came the pack ponies, some 60 or 70 in all, and on each pony was a wool pack that could have meant a human neck to the king's hangman, if only Collier were free to work his will. The Scarecrow drew up in the road and watched the great procession of ponies pass along toward the coast. When they had all but passed, he gave a signal. The doors of the millhouse barn were opened, and 10 more heavily laden ponies trotted out and joined the snake of illegal commerce that was wriggling away to the sea. Then, like some field marshal upon the field of battle, did the Scarecrow slowly ride over a small bridge and along the front of his demon cavalry. Jerry Jerk heard him give a short order to Beelzebub as he passed, and then saw him gallop away after the pack ponies. Now came the ordeal for the king's men, for they were kept in that absurd position for a full 2 hours or longer. Folly to move, folly to fight. There they had to stop, a foolish-looking group of fighting men, if you like. But more foolish had they attempted resistance, for they were outnumbered in men, in arms, and in wits. Once indeed did the boatswain nearly lose his head, and that was when Hellspite lowered his blunderbuss and produced a clay pipe, which he lit. The boatswain saw a chance, spat in his hand, grasped his cutlass, and clambered from the dike. But instantaneously came the ominous noise of cocking pistols, and the old sea dog grabbed his leg and pulled him back, swearing, into the mud. Hellspite chuckled and smoked his pipe. The horsemen covered every man in the ditch with cocked weapons, and so another hour passed over the curious group. Suddenly, from across the marsh came the cry of a curlew, repeated 7 times. A curlew, by the way, is a bird, a marsh bird. Hellspite put up his pipe and muttered an order to the 2 devils by the donkey. Then he addressed the sailors. Now, good sailors, we will trouble you for your arms. Pass them up to good Job Mallet, and he shall stretch his legs and lay them at my feet. But again Job Mallet lost his head. He arose in the ditch and saying out bravely, You and the rest of you are damned cowards in silencing the mouth of our captain. Had he his voice, you know what he'd say. Shoot him and be damned to you, and well you know it. Why don't you meet us in fair fight, instead of using such devil's tricks? 'Cause we ain't so bloody-minded as the good king's boatswain, answered Hellspite in a piping voice, which drew forth a great laugh from the devils. One of the seamen, considering that all eyes were now upon the boatswain, leapt from the ditch and made a rush for Hellspite with his naked cutlass. 5 or 6 pistols cracked behind him, and over he fell, face downwards in the road. Every shot had taken effect. He was dead. Oh, do keep your heads, you silly king's men, wailed Hellspite, for look how we've spoiled that nice little man. He's no use now to fight the French, no use at all. Oh, what a pity, what a pity, what a pity. Again came the cry of the curlew 7 times. Now then, those weapons, ordered Hellspite sharply, and if they don't come along quick, we'll put this captain out of service, along with his man there.
There was nothing for it. They were in their power. The smugglers had proved that they were good shots and that they meant business. There was nothing for it but to hand over their arms to the bosun, who with a bad grace laid them upon the roadway, whence they were picked up by the jack-o'-lanterns, who bore them into the barn.
"Now then, my fine fellows," said Hellspite, "we'll plump this 'ere captain on the road. You'll pick him up if you want him, and take him home to bed, for the dawn ain't far off, and as the woolpacks are safe and away, we'll bid you good repose."
The captain was accordingly lifted from the donkey and laid upon the road. The sailors were filed up around him and conducted ingloriously back to the vicarage barn. 3 devils, told off for the purpose, bore away the body of the dead seaman, so that before the dawn lit up the marsh, there was no sign of smugglers anywhere upon her. Jerry Jerk, after disrobing with the others at the coffin shop, was packed off by Beelzebub to bed, where, without disturbing his grandparents, he fell immediately asleep and dreamed his whole adventure over again. Just as the dawn was breaking, Mipps was returning from the vicarage barn, where he had deposited a bundle of weapons outside the door, when he saw a dirty-faced man creeping along the field by the churchyard wall. As he watched the figure disappear into a deep dyke, he muttered,
"I wonder if that there thing is real or unreal. I wonder if it did get off that reef in his body. If he did, what the hell's he finding to live upon? And if he ain't, well, God help one of us in this here place."
And he scuttled back to the coffin shop by back ways, like a prowling rat. So, question, my dear scholars. Shall we do one more chapter or stop here tonight? I can try and push myself to do one more chapter. I am feeling a little bit worn out, though. But I did see Yoi just came in, and I do feel a little bit sad to end the night with just reading one chapter, I believe, to Yoi. What say you, my dear scholars? Shall we read one more chapter or stop for now? I suppose I could read one more chapter. Give me a second then. Let me just readjust myself. We'll read one more chapter and make it that point, because I think it will then... Yes, I think it'll make a good time for it. Chapter 30. Captain Collier entertains an attorney from Rye. It was something of a difficult position, which Captain Collier was called upon to face. They had cut a ridiculous figure no one was more conscientious than himself, and being made absurd before his own men inside the situation doubly difficult. But Captain Collier preserved his dignity in a manner that did credit to the British Navy. When the smugglers had gone and the boatswain had freed him from his bonds, he stood up in the barn and addressed the sailors.
"My men," he began, "we have been badly beaten. Without a blow you were forced to lay down your arms, which I well know must have been a hard thing for you to do. After I had given the boatswain orders of the night's plan, I went out to verify certain suspicions that I had formed against certain folk upon the marsh. I was congratulating myself on how well I was succeeding, when I found myself a helpless prisoner in the wretches' hands. I had walked blindly into a very clever trap. As you saw for yourself, my captors made such a complete job of me that I was helpless to speak to you, or give you any sign. Under the circumstance, I must thank the bosun for his gallant behavior. I appreciate what he did, for he saved my life, although perhaps I could almost find it in my heart to wish that he had acted otherwise, for a good seaman's death is now on my hands. Brave Will Redrum, who was shot dead on the road. I also cannot find in my heart to reprimand Joe Dickinson for his fit of laughter, because nobody saw the humor and disgrace of my position as much as I did myself. But when a man's life is forfeited, all humor slips away, and so it has for me, and for you. I'm sure. And who were Will Redrum's comrades? Excuse me. I am very thankful for my life has been spared for one purpose: to avenge poor Redrum's death. And if anyone should and can avenge him, I hold myself to be that man. For this purpose, I intend to take you all into my confidence. Having failed dismally so far, I do not wish to fail again. Therefore, listen. In the first place, we are not strong enough. We are not a strong enough body to cope with these marshmen. I shall therefore demand reinforcements. There are redcoats at Dover, and there are seamen at Rye. To both of these towns shall I send messengers. Also at Rye there is a remarkable old man, a wise man, an attorney at law. He will meet me this very day at the Ship Inn, and will undertake all the legal points with regard to the arrests, which I shall make as soon as I have gathered up a few more facts. This corner of England is a very hotbed of enemies to the government. Bosun, you will serve out an extra allowance of rum at once, for we must drink together. I'm sounding a little bit like Churchill there for some reason, I don't know why. Excuse me. The rum was served, and the captain raised his pannikin. To the swift avenging of poor Will Redrum, to the quick regaining of our dignity, and to the speedy hanging of his Majesty's foes. The men drank, and then Joe Dickinson shouted, "And to our captain! God bless him, and blast them as does him dirty tricks!" The toast was drunk greedily, and then the bosun led three cheers. Three cheers which went echoing out of the old barn across the marsh, with a strength that made many a smuggler turn in his bed uneasily. When they opened the barn door at daybreak to let the captain go forth, they found there a neat pile of weapons. His Majesty's pistols and His Majesty's cutlasses were all returned. "Aye, but there's some honour amongst thieves, sir," exclaimed the bosun. "Devil a bit of it," said the captain. "The rascals know that we can soon get substitutes, and they've no wish to have such tell-tale things discovered on their premises. There's more good sense than honour in it, I'm thinking, Joe Mallet." At 10 o'clock that morning a coach rolled up to the door of the Ship Inn, and out stepped Attorney Wiley, Esquire, attorney at law from Rye, a man of 65, but upright and alert as any youngster. He was attired in a bottle green coat, black satin breeches, silk stockings, silver-buckled shoes, and faultless linen. His grey wig, tied conscientiously with a black ribbon, completed a true picture of the law. A man to desire for one's defense, a man to dread for one's accusation. The captain received him at the door of the inn, and conducted him to the privacy of his own bedchamber. There he unburdened his mind to the lawyer, stating all his suspicions, and clearly showing how he had arrived at them. By the end of the morning they thoroughly understood each other,
The lawyer returning by coach to Rye with orders to the governor of the castle to prepare accommodation for a large number of prisoners, and to see it that there were enough chains. But, strange to relate, that lawyer in bottle green never reached the little town of Rye, for his coach stopped at a certain farmhouse beyond Romney. Here he alighted to make room for another lawyer, a real lawyer. A man of 65 who had left Rye that very morning to consult with a certain Captain Collier residing at the Ship Inn, Dymchurch. For at a lonely spot on the road outside Romney a strong body of men had awaited the arrival of his coach. While 2 or 3 of them removed the driver from his box to the farmhouse, where they speedily made him drunk, 2 or 3 others had entered the coach, securely gagged and blindfolded the occupant, and conveyed him after his coachman. The coach immediately proceeded to Dymchurch with another driver and another lawyer, a man in a bottle green coat. Interesting. The blindfolded lawyer had been scared out of all knowledge, especially by the sound of a certain man's voice known as the Scarecrow. That terrible ruffian had told the lawyer that if, on returning to Rye, he breathed a word of what had happened, they would most certainly catch him again and do away with him, adding that there was no place more convenient than Romney Marsh for the hiding of a body. So, with the exception of telling his awful experience to his wife, whom he feared nearly as greatly as he feared the Scarecrow, Antony Wiley, attorney at law, held his tongue, being only too thankful that the rascals had let him off so easily. The coachman, who was muddled with drink and was falling off his box, had at least a dozen times on the way back never even remembered what had happened, or to whose kind offices he was indebted for the privilege of becoming so gloriously drunk. So the affair passed unheeded by the public, and the gentleman in bottle green, having changed his clothes, might that very afternoon have been seen going towards the church at Dymchurch. Down in the crypt he went, and there at a dirty table lighted by a candle set in a bottleneck, he aided 2 other men to work out certain accounts that were spread before them in a book marked Parish Register of Death. But there were no deaths registered in that book. It was full of figures accounting for cargoes of wool, full of receipts for coffins loaded with spirits. Oh, another drink. Sexton Mipps and the gentleman who had worn the bottle green coat then unlocked an old chest and took out certain money bags which they emptied on the table. The third gentleman, whom they addressed as the Scarecrow, helped them to sort the coin. French in one pile, English in another, and then, referring to a list of names in the register, the 3 managers of the secret bank portioned out their servants' wages. When this was accomplished, the gentleman who had worn the bottle green coat presented his little account, which was promptly paid in guineas, and left them, saying that he was very sorry that it was the last time that he would draw so many golden Georges from the bank.
Yes, the bank closes accounts today,
said the Scarecrow, striking his name off the list.
Though, perhaps some day we shall open it again. Who knows?
Let's hope so, said the gentleman, shaking hands with the Scarecrow and the sexton, and let's hope we meet again. Goodbye. And he was gone, Mipps locking the door behind him.
It's all right to a penny,
said the Scarecrow. Hooray, I calls it, chuckled Sexton Mipps, rubbing his hands together. I'll get this little lot of coinage nailed up in a coffin and sent to Calais. And old what's-his-name's what's just gone up the stairs had arranged with the Calais people to get its transferred to the Bank of Lyons. So you can get at it yourself from Marseilles, can't you?
Yes, we're all square now. Everything's shipshape. Mother Waggus I've settled with, and Imogen gets the iron-bound casket. I've seen to it all. But it's time I was off. I've a certain gentleman to see before nightfall. Who's that? asked Mips.
The squire,
replied the Scarecrow, laughing as he tied up the money bags. And I have a gentleman to visit too, said Mips.
Who's that?
Parson Syn, Doctor Syn, the worthy vicar, replied Mips, winking, at which the Scarecrow laughed and went out of the crypt. Mips, after locking up the money in the chest, followed leisurely, and as he crossed the churchyard, he saw Doctor Syn ringing the front doorbell of the courthouse. Well, murmured Mips to himself, I've met one or two of them in my time, but he's a blinking marvel. And we'll stop there, my dear scholars. It feels like we've had all the action now put in these final parts. And I mentioned before there was a Disney adaptation. It feels like the Disney adaptation takes little bits and pieces. Yoy, one more. Yoy, I'd love to, but I don't think my throat could survive it. We need to let my throat rest a little bit because, again, it is a lot of reading and it's a lot of voice work in these things. So unfortunately, Yoy, I'm going to have to stop tonight. I'm sorry. But next week, you know what? I don't even know how many chapters we read. We stopped at chapter... We started at chapter 27. Stopping at chapter 31. 30. I don't know. Well, we might be able to finish the book next week. Oh, speaking of next week. So next week. If everything goes according to plan, again, my dear scholars, next Monday, we will be reading, next Monday, yeah, you can tell how tired I am. Next Monday, we will be playing more of The Last Campfire. And next Thursday, we'll be doing more of Doctor Syn. And we might just finish it up. We don't have that many chapters left. So then, let's see who we can raid tonight. If we can check. Who is online? Who we can raid? You know what? Let's raid Marshmallow Bun. I know it's not a reading stream, but it's a gaming stream. It's Curse of Monkey Island, which I love. We haven't raided Marshmallow in a long time. So let's raid them. And you know it's fitting. So then, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye-bye.